Alright guys, so this is our final unit for Biology A. It's Standard 2.5 and 2.7, so it's Unit 10. It looks like this. You should have gotten one in class on Friday, or you can print it off on Canvas. Okay. Alright, so this is the beginning of your notes packet. Here is just some key vocab that we'll be going over for this first part of the notes packet. And now these questions. So what would happen if your cells did not divide? That's what this unit is about. The beginning is cells dividing, and then your organs and your organ system. So it's kind of cool. It's all about your body. And these are just very general questions. And then here's some answers to this question. So once again, what would happen? Let's move you up here. Move me up here. What would happen if your cells did not ever divide? Okay, what would happen? The human body would be affected without the process of mitosis. So the first thing you got to understand is that mitosis is cell division. Mitosis is when your skin cells, you scrape off your skin cells, it's replacing those skin cells and making new ones. Same with like your stomach cells, like the stomach acid eats away, you got to make new stomach cells. So mitosis is just simply the process of your cells dividing and making new cells. So once again, what would happen if that stopped occurring? And here's just 3 different answers that I liked. So we would probably be in a lot of trouble if we didn't have mitosis. In fact, we probably wouldn't exist at all. From the time an egg is fertilized by a sperm cell, mitosis starts to happen. And in our daily lives, skin cells, stomach cells, hair cells, bone cells, and other tissue cells are undergoing mitosis. Think about it. Every time you scraped your body, if it wasn't replaced by new cells, eventually you'd get to the point where you had no tissue left, and then you're exposed to bacteria, and it'd be a hot mess. We wouldn't live very long. Okay, here's another answer to what would happen if your cells did not ever divide. Mitosis is the process by which cells divide. Without it, you can make no new cells. The cells in most of your body would wear out very quickly, greatly shortening your life. All right, last one. No life would be possible without mitosis. Cell theory tells us that all living things are made of cells and that all cells come from other cells. How does one cell become 2 cells? Well, by dividing, and that's mitosis. But the cell can't divide into 2 living cells unless it copies its DNA, then divides the DNA evenly into 2 halves that are about to become 2 cells. The division of the DNA into the daughter cells is mitosis. So you have 1 cell, and for it to divide into 2, you have to copy the genetic material. So in that 1 cell, the DNA copies, and then once the DNA copies, then the cell is ready to split. A fertilized egg cell can only turn into the trillions of cells in the human body by doing an awful lot of cell division. Even after we finish growing, we need cell division to replace the cells that we are constantly lose from our skin, digestive tract, and other places. We also need new cells to repair our tissues, fight disease, and make reproductive cells. The main reason we age is that our cells don't divide as much as they did when we were young. So aging gives you an idea about what happens when there is less mitosis. The older you get, your cells are not dividing and replenishing the old ones, and things just don't function as well. Some types of our cells in our bodies do very little mitosis after we're born. Can you figure out which one those are? So some cells in our body, once they are made, have a really slow regeneration rate and may never, ever come back if they are damaged. Can you think of when people get in car wrecks and any type of their nerves are damaged? Then they have something called paralysis, and that means parts of your body are paralyzed. And that's because your nerve tissue, your nerve cells were damaged and they can never be fixed again. So that's the kind of scary thing. Skin cells replenish a gazillion times in your lifetime. But when it comes to like nerve tissue, nerve cells, they don't. Okay, now we're just going to go through the PowerPoint and we're going to answer these questions. Okay, really simple. So let's hop over to here. All right, so this is actually a picture of mitosis of your cells dividing. Here's the nucleus, nucleolus. All these little squiggly worms, those are actually chromosomes. So here's all these chromosomes. And chromosomes is your DNA. So you can see what has to happen first before that cell divides is that DNA's got a copy. So here are all these chromosomes. Here's where the DNA is replicating, so it's going to split in half evenly. And then you have 2 exact copies of the DNA, and then the cell splits. So all of this DNA just got copied, and then it lined it up, and it said, okay, here's our DNA, let's copy it, and now let's split it up so it goes evenly to each side. That way no cell is missing any genetic material. So that's mitosis, that's cell division. Okay. All right. So your first question, still kind of following along right here in that notes packet, right? It says, why do cells need to divide? And the big idea is we just got to replace worn out, unneeded cells. As you start to grow, you got to make new cells, new tissue. So you can kind of just see, for example, when your skin cells skin your knee, cells divide to replace old, dead, or damaged cells. Cells can also divide so living things can grow. When organisms grow, it isn't because cells are getting larger. Organisms grow because cells are dividing and produce more and more cells. So it's to replace damaged ones or to help the growth of an organism. This is kind of trippy. In human bodies, you have nearly 2 trillion cells divide every day. 2 trillion cells, which we need it. We're always damaging and needing to replace old ones. All right, second question. How fast do cells divide? So the thing is, when we're going to watch this little video, but cells divide all sorts of different rates and times, like skin cells and stomach cells. Those cells replace really quick within 24, 30 hours. But some cells, I don't know if you've ever damaged. I know I had knee surgery. I got in a car wreck and smacked my head. I had a part of my head that was numb for 6-7 months until the nerve damage replaced, and I had feeling in that part of my head. Same with my knee. When I had knee surgery, part of my knee I have a numb spot where it still hasn't healed, and that was 20 years ago. So some cells are quick, some are longer. But watch the cells divide in this time-lapse video of an animal cell. So it's E. coli, and E. coli bacteria cells at the bottom. So it compresses 30 hours of meiotic cell division to a few seconds. It's like we said, some is longer, some is shorter. Let's pull this on over here. So here is the cells. We've got an animal cell up here and E. coli bacteria. Look how fast that E. coli bacteria is reproducing versus ours. So let's back this up again. So this is bacteria. Look at that, single-celled. By the time we're able to make a second new cell, so we're watching up here, bam, 2 cells. Look how much bacteria is there. So it just goes to show the time comparison between bacteria, how quickly it will divide versus our cells. Okay. All right, so how fast do cells divide? It depends on the cell, but some can be fast in 24 hours, and some can take months and months, years. All right, how do we know when cells are ready to divide? Okay, so cells regulate their division by communicating with each other using chemical signals from special proteins. And it's almost like the cell is growing and it has to hit a checkpoint. And when it hits that checkpoint, then it can keep growing and do the next step. And then hit that checkpoint, then it can do the next step. Kind of like a cell can't divide without that DNA being copied. Well, it has to go through a series of checkpoints. So we look at this. So these signals act like switches, these checkpoints, to tell cells when to start dividing and later when to stop dividing. So it's important for your cells to divide so you can grow, so your cuts will heal or parts of your body that are damaged will be fixed. It's also important for cells to stop dividing at the right time. If a cell cannot stop dividing when it's supposed to stop, then this leads to things like cancer. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a bone spur, but it's just a fragment of your bone that is continued to grow and increase. That could be a good example of what that is. Okay. All right. This is something that you can kind of take a look at. It's pretty crazy. Skin cells are constantly dividing. So we lose 30,000 to 40,000 skin cells every minute. So that's 50 trillion skin cells that are replaced every day. I mean, it just goes to show how quickly our cells are damaged and gone and how quickly they need to be replaced, and just the grand scale of how many, which is huge. All right, what other cells do you think we need to divide often? I mean, this is which ones would replace or need to be replaced really fast, like your skin cells, and like we said, digestive tract, because all of those acids and juices from breaking things down will also break down your own skin tissue. All right, next part. So some cells, like nerve and brain cells, divide much less often. And why do you think that is? It's really related to the cell cycle. The cell cycle for it to replace takes a very, very, very long time. And it's these phases, like this growth phase, and where the DNA copies and it continues to grow before the actual DNA replicates. This cell cycle can take just a much longer time than normal. All right, so when it comes to the cell cycle, the cell will spend most of its time in what we call this phase of interphase. Okay, and interphase is actually made up of 3 stages. You can see it's all this purple, G1, S, and G2. So this is all interphase. And like we said, this is where it's growing, it's replicating its DNA, it prepares for cell division. So a lot happens in this interphase cycle. So once it leaves interphase, then it's ready for mitosis. And we talked about what mitosis is. It's just where the cell divides. And this is more particularly when the nucleus divides. And then the cell's ready to split. So the cell then leaves interphase and undergoes mitosis, and then it completes its division. So what we're actually going to do is, let me back this up. Okay, so I needed to back it up just a little bit. Because in your notes packet, I asked for you to label the cell cycle. And so you're going to use this slide to label the cell cycle. So you can just pause the video and then get this labeled. Just keep in mind when we back this up a little bit, that this is interphase, and that's where it grows, matures, and then mitosis is where the actual nucleus divides. Okay. So here's that mitosis process. Anyways, but you're going to label yours, and then I want you to watch these 2 videos. Okay, this one's like this first video really could be about 8 minutes, but I really want you to make sure you watch these 2 videos on mitosis. You only need to watch the first 2 minutes of the next one. But you'll watch these videos, and then when you look, I want you to construct an explanation about the role of mitosis. And this should just give you an idea of what should be in your paragraph. So what I'm looking at is you label this cell, and then tell me which phase takes the most time. And here is all of interphase, and here is mitosis. Keep in mind the cell cycle, this is kind of like a time lapse of all of this time for interphase, and then here's little mitosis. So which phase takes the most time? You can look back at the slides there. All right, so I want you to, next, you're going to draw a line. So this page, you're going to take a picture and upload this page to Canvas. So you're going to draw a line through the middle of the cell at the right. And then what happens, just going through the idea of what happens if it doesn't grow before it divides. What would happen if the organelles didn't replicate as part of the cell cycle? So those organelles we're talking about is like your mitochondria, the DNA, your ribosomes. What happens if they don't replicate before the cell splits? Same thing, what would happen if your DNA doesn't replicate? And then why do we call this a metabolic process? Remember, metabolic means chemical reactions occurring in the body. All right, and then you will explain the role of mitosis after you once again watch the videos. And then this is what you're going to submit to me on Canvas. All right, that's it.